to the Anchor River, and I do these readings for us tonight. And tonight's my last night at home for a little bit. Well, for a week anyway, and then maybe I get one more night at home. Then I go to Bethel for 3 weeks. And it's an amazing thing that's happened with this job and all that, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm thankful. And I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm so thankful for God. I don't deserve any of these things that God's given me, and it's only by His mercy and His grace that I receive all things. And it just chokes me up when we give up hope sometimes, how fast God turns things around. When we feel like hope is lost. So I'm going to read tonight for us something that has meaning to myself and will be helpful for you. Viktor Frankl, Suffering Ceases to be Suffering When It Acquires Meaning, by Elena Nasledisheva. This man received a special right to talk about the meaning of life and suffering. Austrian psychiatrist, psychologist, neurologist, philosopher, and writer Viktor Frankl, 1905 to 1997, spent 2.5 years in Nazi concentration camps, suffered and created a new direction in psychotherapy. Logotherapy, translated as healing by meaning. Today, March 26, marks the 121st anniversary of his birth. The question of the meaning of human life at different moments of our earthly existence seems to us to be either extremely clear, or painful, or rhetorical, or completely banal. It would seem as this meaning so important. The answers for each of us, first of all, for believers and non-believers, will be different. But if you think about it, isn't the state of loss of meaning, emptiness, meaninglessness of life the most destructive and dangerous for the soul? For me personally, yes, and at critical moments in life, this condition requires the most urgent help. First of all, you look for it in prayer with God, but also through people, through the books written by them. It also sometimes comes unexpectedly. This was the case with Viktor Frankl's books, but his answers to the fundamental questions of all times and peoples have already become valuable life-saving medicine for many thousands of people. Howdy, everybody, brothers and sisters. God bless you. Thanks for joining me. The fate of this man, his terrible but invaluable experience of overcoming extreme senselessness and hopelessness. Extreme suffering evoke a feeling of special respect and attention to his thoughts and conclusions, especially those that are in tune with the Christian worldview. Everyone has an experience of suffering, both spiritual and physical, but only a few can say that they actually went through hell and did not break. Moreover, he found meaning in it and helped other sufferers. Being in fairly comfortable conditions of modern life, we most often think about suffering abstractly, theoretically, without having an idea of the extremely cruel facets of human existence. Or we read purely theoretical, speculative books by modern psychotherapists sitting in cozy offices and giving advice based on someone else's and not their own hard-won experience. And then a skeptical attitude towards them and their doctrines is quite justified. Looking at them, I want to remember the Bible. Doctor, heal yourself. Even before the outbreak of World War II, Frankl became a doctor of medicine in the field of neurology and psychiatry, deeply studied the psychology of depression and suicide. In his youth, he was fascinated by the theories of psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud and A. Adler, but later began to treat them critically and found the third, after the previous two, Viennese school of psychoanalysis. In Freud's time, sexual dissatisfaction was considered the cause of all troubles, and now we were already worried about another problem, disappointment in life. Whereas in Adler's time, the typical patient suffered from an inferiority complex. Today's patients complain mainly of feeling of inner emptiness, which arises from a sense of the absolute meaninglessness of life. That's what I call an existential victim, an existential vacuum. Having survived the horrors of war, being a prisoner of the death camps, Frankl, as a person and as a psychotherapist, gained an exceptional life and professional experience, the experience of learning about human nature. As a professor in two fields, neurology and psychiatry, I am fully aware of the limits within a person when they're subject to biological, physical, and social conditions. But in addition to being a professor in two fields of medicine, I am also survivor of 4 camps, concentration camps, and in this capacity I can testify to the incredible degree to which a person is able to resist and courageously resist even the worst imaginable conditions. We would even take the liberty of saying that this most radical challenge to oneself that man is capable of, i.e., not only doubts the meaning of life, but also actions directed against life. This fundamental ability of man to choose suicide, this freedom to decide whether or not to be at all, distinguish man from all other creatures, in which the human mode of being differs from the existence of animals. Camp life provided an opportunity to look into the depths of the human soul. And is it any wonder that in these depths everything that is peculiar to man was revealed? The human is an alloy of good and evil. The boundary separating good and evil passes through everything human and reaches the very depths of the human soul. It's discernible even in the abyss of the concentration camp. We have studied man in a way that no previous generation has probably studied him. So what is man? He is a creature who always decides who he is. This is the creature that invented the gas chambers, but it is also a creature who walked into these cells proudly standing upright with a prayer on his lips. According to Frankl, in a person, one can see not only the desire for pleasure according to Freud, or the will to power according to Adler's theory, but also the desire for meaning. A person seeks meaning and feels frustrated or vacuum free if this desire remains unrealized. The desire to find the meaning of life is not just a secondary rationalization of instinctual drives, it's the main motivational force in man. 1941 was the last year when Viktor Frankl led a full life. He worked as a neurosurgeon and headed the neurology department of the Rothschilds Hospital, prepared his first book, Healing the Soul, for publication, married nurse Tilly Grossner. But in the next year, in 1942, everything changed dramatically and irreversibly. Victor, his young beloved wife and parents, who were Jews by nationality, were sent by the Nazis to concentration camps. Only Victor lived to be released. His other loved ones died. Frankl not only survived, he continued his mission of a psychologist in the inhuman conditions of the camps, overcoming his own suffering and finding the strength to save other prisoners from shock, apathy, depression, and suicide. The experience that he gained in an extreme life situation became an effective remedy, a medicine for his patients in peaceful post-war times, because every person is not immune from severe losses, psychological traumas, and diseases. This psychotherapist treated people with meaning, helping them to find it in any difficult state of life, even in suffering, even in impending death. Not only an act of life that gives a person the opportunity to realize the values of creativity as meaning, and not only a life full of experience, a life that gives the opportunity to realize oneself in the experience of beauty and the enjoyment of art or nature. Life also preserves its meaning as it was in the concentration camp, which leaves no chance for the realization of values in creativity or experience. There remains one last opportunity to give meaning to life, to take a stand against this form of extreme coercive limitation of being. Creative life, like sensual life, has long been closed to him, but this isn't the end of it. If life has meaning at all, then suffering also has meaning. Suffering is a part of life, like fate and death. Suffering and death give wholeness to being. After the war, Frankel lived a long, fruitful life and died, being a venerable old man at the age of 92. He remarried. The couple respected each other's religious views. Frankel's wife was a Catholic, and Victor attended a synagogue. As a doctor and scientist, Frankel received his PhD and became a professor of neurology and psychiatry at the University of Vienna. He gave lectures and seminars in different countries of the world. He managed to write and publish more than 30 books, some of which have been translated into foreign languages, including Russian. A Man in Search of Meaning, To Say Yes to Life, A Psychologist in a Concentration Camp, Doctor and Soul, Fundamentals of Logotherapy, Psychotherapy and Religion, The Will to Meaning, Psychotherapy and Practice, Theory and Therapy of Neuroses, Logotherapy and Existential Analysis, Suffering from the Meaninglessness of Life, Actual Psychotherapy. Logotherapy is not purely religious concept, but Viktor Frankl is a psychotherapist who used religious categories. In any case, he successfully applied logotherapy to people, both believers and non-believers, forming the super meaning, as he called it, of our existence in such a way that in his texts and oral consultations, it was still read between the lines. In this world, as it is described by many sciences, there is no meaning. This, however, does not mean that this world is devoid of meaning, but only that many sciences are blind to it. Meaning sacrificed by many sciences. Being is incomplete and unstatable if it does not carry within itself the desire for something beyond it. We bring the attention, These are some of the books that would help you understand the basic principles of logotherapy and its application in life. Concentration Camp Through the Eyes of a Psychologist. By the evening of that day, we were all lying on the bunks. The mood was especially bad, and then the lights went out. And then the headman, a clever man, started talking about what worried everyone, about comrades who died or committed suicide, about the fact at the heart of these deaths is the rejection of confrontation, the rejection of oneself. And he turned to me. God knows I was not in the right state of mind to comfort anyone or provide psychotherapeutic help. I was terribly cold and hungry, but I had to gather my strength and say something. And I began with the fact that the fate for each of us is disappointing, and the probability of survival is negligible, but it still exists, about 5%. But in spite of everything, I am not going to lay down my arms. After all, no one knows his future, what the next hour can bring him. I spoke not only about our unknown future, but also about the happy past, about our inner wealth, which no one and nothing can take away. And even though it is past, it is still preserved for eternity. I've talked about the possibilities of making your life meaningful even here. My comrades lay quietly, not moving. Occasionally sighs were heard. That human life always and under all circumstances has a meaning, and that this meaning also embraces suffering, want, and death. And I asked these poor fellows who were listening attentively to me in the pitch darkness of the barracks of a concentration camp to look in the face of this most terrible situation and yet not to despair, to realize that even with all the hopelessness of our struggle, it still has meaning, its dignity. And each of us, I said, in these hours, which perhaps are already the last hours for many, someone looks down on us with a demanding gaze, a friend or a woman, living or dead or God. And he expects from us that we will not disappoint him, that we will not be pitiful, that we will be able to remain steadfast both in life and in death. And finally, I said of our sacrifice that it makes sense anyway. Religious people will easily understand me, and I said this too. I told them the story of a comrade of mine who, at the very beginning of his camp life, had made a pact with heaven. Let any of his sufferings and his death be the price he pays to make the death of a loved one easy. And for him, suffering and death ceased to be meaningless. They were filled with a high meaning. Yes, he did not want to suffer and die just like that, and we don't want that either. To instill in people this ultimate meaning of our existence here in the barracks and now, in this situation, was the goal of my efforts, and it seems that I have achieved it. Suddenly, under one of the beams, the electric lamp flashed again, and I saw my comrades gathered around my bunks, feeble and in miserable rags, and I saw tears in their eyes. In the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve 1945, the death rate in the camp was particularly high, and he did not believe that there was such a reason as a particular deterioration in nutrition, worsening weather, or the outbreak of some new epidemic. The reason, in his opinion, should be sought in the fact that the vast majority of prisoners, for some reason, harbored a naive hope that they would be home by Christmas. But since this hope collapsed, people were seized by disappointment and apathy, which reduced the overall stability of the body, which led to a jump in mortality. We have already said that every attempt to spiritually restore, to straighten a person again and again, convinced that this can be done only by orienting him to some goal in the future. The motto of all psychotherapeutic and psychogenic efforts can be the thought, perhaps most vividly expressed in the words of Nietzsche: whoever has a why can endure almost any how. It was necessary, to the extent that circumstances permitted, to help the prisoner to realize his why, his life goal, and this would give him the strength to endure our nightmarish how, all the horrors of the camp life, to strengthen himself internally, to resist the reality of the camp, and vice versa. Woe to the man who no longer sees the purpose of life, whose soul is devastated, who has lost the meaning of life and with it the meaning of resistance. Such a person who has lost his inner stamina quickly collapses. The phrase with which he rejects all attempts to cheer him up is typical. I have nothing more to expect from life. What can I say? How do you object? We came to meadows full of flowers. We saw them and understood that they were flowers, but they did not cause us any feelings. The first spark of joy flared up when we saw a rooster with a lush multicolored tail. But it was only a spark. We did not yet belong to this world. In the evening, when we were all black together in our barracks, each would quietly ask a friend, "Tell me, did you rejoice today?" And the friend would answer embarrassedly, unaware that everyone felt the same way. To tell you the truth, no. Among the prisoners who spent many years behind the barbed wire, who were sent from camp to camp, and who changed almost a dozen camps, as a rule, the greatest chances of survival were those who, in the struggle for existence, completely abandoned all concept of conscience, who did not hesitate either to use violence or even to steal the latter from their own comrade. And someone managed to survive simply thanks to 1,000 or thousands of happy accidents, or simply by the grace of God. You can call it differently, but we, the returnees, know and can say with full confidence, the best did not return. Sensitive people, accustomed from a young age to the predominance of spiritual interests, endured the camp situation, of course, extremely painfully, but in a spiritual sense, it had a less destructive effect on them, even with their gentle nature, because it was more accessible to them to return from this terrible reality to the world of spiritual freedom and inner wealth. It is this and only this that can explain the fact that people of fragile physique sometimes resisted the reality of the camp better than the outwardly strong and sturdy ones. I've always thought and asserted that a person begins to understand why this and that happened in his life and what was for the best for him only after some time, after 5 or 10 years. In the camp, however, this sometimes became clear after only 5 or 10 minutes. Yes, we had to suffer a lot. Therefore, it was necessary to face suffering, risking not to endure, risking not to hold back tears. And there was no need to be ashamed of such tears. They testified to the fact that a person has the highest courage, the courage to suffer. However, few had such an understanding. Most admitted with embarrassment that they cried again. One of my friends, when asked how he managed to get rid of hunger swelling, answered, "I cried them." A person who is unable to oppose reality with the last surge of self esteem generally loses the sense of himself as a subject in the concentration camp, not to mention the feeling of himself as a spiritual being with a sense of inner freedom and personal value. One second here. A person who is unable to oppose reality of this last surge of self esteem generally loses the sense of himself as a subject in the camp, not to mention the feeling of himself as a spiritual being with a sense of inner freedom and personal value. He begins to perceive himself rather as a part of some large mass. His being descends to the level of herd existence. Dostoevsky once said, "I am afraid of only one thing, to be unworthy of my torment." These words come to mind when one thinks of those martyrs whose behavior in the camp, whose suffering and death itself have become evidence of the ability to preserve the last thing, inner freedom, to the end. They can well say that they were worthy of their torment. They showed evidence that in suffering lies podvig, inner strength, a person's spiritual freedom which cannot be taken away from him until his last breath, gives him the opportunity to fill his life with meaning until his last breath. After all, it is not only an act of life that gives a person the opportunity to realize the values of creativity, and not only a life full of experiences, a life that gives the opportunity to realize oneself in the experience of beauty and the enjoyment of art or nature. Life also preserves its meaning, as was in the concentration camp, which leaves no chance for the realization of values in creativity or experience. About love. The frozen ground does not yield well. Hard clods fly from under the pickaxe. Sparks flash. We have not warmed up yet, and they are still silent, and my spirit is hovering around my beloved again. I still talk to her. She answers me, and suddenly a thought pierces me. I don't even know if she's alive, but what I know now is that less love concentrates on man's bodily nature, the more deeply it penetrates into his spiritual essence. The less essential becomes his so being, as philosophers call it, his here being, here with me presence, his bodily existence in general. In order to evoke the spiritual image of my beloved now, I do not need to know whether she is alive or not. Had I known at the moment that she had died, I am sure that I would still have evoked her spiritual image in spite of this knowledge, and my spiritual dialogue with her would have been just as intense and full to me. It became clear to me, I now understand this truth well, that love is much broader than the physical personality of the person that you love. It is focused on the spiritual existence of the beloved, their inner essence, whether they are physically present here, and even whether they are alive or not. In this sense, loses its meaning. In serving a cause or loving another person, a person fulfills himself. The more he gives himself to excuse me, the more he gives himself to a cause, the more he gives himself to his partner, the more he is a human being, and the more he becomes himself. Only love that is ultimate and highest. Only love is that ultimate and highest thing that justifies our existence here, that can elevate and strengthen us. Yes, I've comprehended the meaning of that outcome that has been achieved by human thought, poetry, faith. Liberation is through love, in love. Now I know that a person who no longer has anything in this world can spiritually, even for a moment, possess the most precious image for himself, the image of the one they love. You are again conducting your mental dialogue with your loved one, again sending your complaints to heaven, again for the thousandth time, looking for an answer to the question about the meaning of your suffering, your sacrifice, your slow death. But then, in some last impulse, everything in you rebels against the hopelessness of death, and you feel how your spirit breaks through this gray fog, through hopelessness and meaninglessness. And your question, is there any meaning? A firm, jubilant yes sounds from somewhere, and at that moment, in the window of a village house, dimly visible in the distance, like a theoretical scenery, a light suddenly lights up. A lux tenebris lucet, the light that shines in the darkness. This thought struck me. For the first time in my life, I suddenly understood the truth sung by so many poets, proclaimed as the supreme wisdom by so many thinkers. This truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal for that person to strive for. Then I realized the meaning of the greatest mystery, the poetry, reflection, and faith of people have always strived to convey, the salvation of man through love and in love. Who will you become? How will your future turn out? It's always your decision. This is our freedom. Each of us has a unique meaning of life, and no one except ourselves can say what it is. What it is, you just need to find it. The uniqueness inherent in each person determines the meaning of their individual life. He himself is unique. What exactly he can do and must do is unique in his work, his creativity, his love. Awareness of such irreplaceability forms a sense of responsibility for one's own life, for living it all to the end, to highlight its entirety. A person who has realized his responsibility to another person or to a cause entrusted to him will never give up life. He knows why he exists, and therefore he will find the strength to endure almost any how. There's no situation in life which would not give us the opportunity to find meaning, and there is no such person for whom life would not keep some work ready. The opportunity to realize meaning is always unique, and the person who can realize it is always unique. One should not look for an abstract meaning of life. Everyone has their own special calling or mission, a specific purpose in life that needs to be fulfilled. And if you're not here to do it, how many people that needed you to do it won't have anyone? Everyone has their own special calling or mission, a specific purpose in life that needs to be fulfilled. In all this, there's no substitute for him, and his life cannot be lived anew. Thus, the task of each is unique, as is his specific ability to fulfill it. Where we cannot change the situation, we are called to change ourselves. Everything can be taken away from a person except one. The last freedom of a person to choose his attitude to any circumstances, to choose his own path. Not even the devil can break you. You can lose everything in life except for one thing, the freedom to choose your reaction to what is happening. This is what determines the quality of our life. Not our wealth or poverty, not fame or obscurity, not health or suffering. The quality of our life is determined by how we relate to these realities, what meaning we ascribe to them, what state of mind they create for us. Suffering has as its goal to protect a person from apathy, from spiritual rigor mortis. To some extent, suffering ceases to be suffering when it acquires meaning. Suffering has meaning if you yourself become different. The desire to find the meaning of life is the main motivating force in a person. I'm not afraid to say that there is no more effective help in the world to survive even in the most terrible conditions than knowing that your life has meaning. The whole difficulty is that the question of the meaning of life must be posed differently. We need to teach ourselves and explain to those who doubt that the point is not what we expect from life, but what it expects from us. Philosophically speaking, a kind of Copernican revolution is needed here. We must not ask about the meaning of life, but understand that this question is addressed to us daily and hourly. Life poses questions, and we must answer them, not with conversations or reflections, but with action, with corrected behavior. After all, to live ultimately means to be responsible for the correct fulfillment of the tasks that life sets for everyone, for the fulfillment of the requirements of the day and hour. By Elena Nasledisheva, March 27th, 2026. It's so easy to forget. We're only here for such a short time, like a grain of dust in the cosmos of all eternity. It's so easy to be broken down by this world. I see so much evil everywhere. There's so much evil going on. I just saw that someone was saying on YouTube Kids they've been showing cartoons teaching children how to take their own lives. And some grieving father said that he found his son just at the very last seconds of his life, was able to save him, but they had to put the child in an induced coma for several days. We see all the Epstein Island and all the horrible things going on in the world. We see terrorists in other countries doing terrible things, such war and violence and death. And even all this horror that surrounds us, this darkness of despair and blackness of evil that we see around us. No matter what, even if we were prisoners in those concentration camps waiting to be marched outside and shot, we could choose to forgive our jailers. We could choose to forgive those persecuting us and show them love even in the last seconds of our life. We can't let them break us. We can't let them fill us with the hate that they're so full of. We can't let the world fill us with the darkness that it's seething with. That everything that we look at, everything that we see around us, the media, the news, these cities and towns that we live in are filled with so much darkness. We see people making so much money off getting people hooked on drugs and alcohol by ruining their lives, by destroying and mocking marriage, by creating perverted alternative relationships so that we're drawn into them in some kind of false hope, into some kind of delusion that somehow if we allow everything that's good in life to be destroyed, everything that God created for us to be warped and destroyed and contorted into some perversion that no longer represents anything that God created, that somehow we can find happiness and live a fulfilled life. We have to choose to reject all this. We have to choose to stand up and to speak out and say that these things aren't okay, that we don't want people dealing fentanyl and heroin in our neighborhoods, that we aren't going to allow it anymore, that we aren't going to allow the judges to keep letting them continue to do it, that we aren't going to allow people to come from other countries and to kill and rape and steal and destroy. We have to stand up. We have to realize that we're all warriors. We have to teach people the right way, to show people how to love, and to never bow our knee to the dark princes of this world. We're going to die anyway. Think about that. We're going to die anyway. Are we going to die being broken and bastardized? Are we going to die becoming like the dark princes of this world as just another one of the demons? Or are we going to choose to stand up to show some light in this world? To not hide ourselves under a bushel because we're afraid of being ostracized or rejected by society, by being called names or freaks because we're doing good, we're loving people and living in love and letting our light shine. We have to make a choice to no longer care what the world threatens us with. We can't be afraid of the government. We can't be afraid of what people think. We can't be afraid of what the people at the schools think. We can't be afraid of anything anymore. I hope all of you will let your light shine. Help those that need help. All these treasures of this world are just going to become dust. Life is short. Be careful of where you stand. There's so many people that need your help. Never before has the world been so massed brainwashed into demonic activity. We've never seen a time like this in human history. This world hasn't become better, it's become worse. No matter how many conveniences we give ourselves, if the world is becoming better for the youth, if we've done something to help the children, how has the suicide rate gone from like 9,000 children a year in 1995 to over 60 something thousand a year now in the United States? Obviously, the DEI and whatever garbage is being taught from the kindergarten level all the way through college isn't working. We see the evidence of it in the streets. We see so many homeless people that aren't cared for anymore. The system doesn't care. They just import different slaves from different countries so that they don't have to give them benefits, so that they can't protect themselves from injustices. We're called. Many are called. Don't let the world pull you off the narrow way. I love you so much, brothers and sisters. I'm not a priest. I have no theology degree. I haven't been to seminary school. I read and share these things for all of us. My journey on this path, because I love you and I know God loves you, and because I've been broken, and I came so close to going over that edge so many times, I felt like I had no meaning in my life. But we have to learn to not be afraid of suffering anymore, to embrace suffering, no matter how painful it becomes. Turn that pain into help for other people. No matter if you have nothing, you can say a kind word to someone. You can comfort someone else that's in pain. And no matter what this world does to you, not even Satan himself can take that away from you. He's already been defeated. Turn to your Lord Jesus Christ. Ask him to help you. Ask him to come into your heart. Don't let the world deceive you and say, well, why would God allow so much suffering to go on? Because we aren't doing our job. We've chosen the devil. We've chosen the devil and to allow the devil to do so much evil in this world. That's why this world is so evil. God's been waiting for us the whole time to turn away from it, to ask him for help. Don't let the devil trick you and deceive you into blaming God for all the things that are wrong in this world that the devil brought. Don't let the demons win. God loves you so much, a love that surpasses all understanding. And all he asks us to do is to try, to turn to him. We can't let the devil make us so fearful of death that we give up on doing good. The devil's a very good deceiver. He's had eons of experience in deceiving humanity from Adam and Eve, from the time of Adam and Eve. Don't let him deceive you and fool you into thinking that God doesn't love you. All of you have meaning. Endure to the end. You have so much coming to you from the Lord. The Lord wants to give you good gifts, but we have to choose. Are we going to choose good or evil? I love you, brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for joining and listening to this tonight. Go out and spread the good news and help someone. Take someone out of the hands of the enemy. Free your brothers and sisters from the demonic prisoners, the demonic jailers that are keeping them enchained to the things of this world. God bless. God willing, I'll see you on the next one. Pray for this whole world so that nobody in this world is going without prayer. God bless.